Hafiz is my best student on this side. I'll tell you who is my best student on this side just now.
Allah's best. Assalamualaikum, Sheikh.
Walaikum salam, Hafiz.
As Sheikh had pointed out, I typed this out to make sure that I got it right. As Sheikh had pointed out, the Ummah of Muhammad after the Muhammad will no longer be significant, beginning with Jerusalem at certain stage and Medina in desolation. And the primary role would be Nabi Isa and the Orthodox Christians. And when we recite the Quran, as you have always asked, cover to cover, we would notice that the Ummah of Musa were described as miscreant, prodigal, and many other superlatives of the negative, except very few. So my point is actually the DNA of mankind is such, very miscreant, except a few, unless the one that they want to submit. The Nasara were mentioned in high regards, and are the ones that will be our savior, as you mentioned again today, against the Jews and the idolaters. We had noted your explanation on how we should behave and act accordingly, pledging allegiance only to our Rasulullah and none else. But out of the many good people that are not exposed to the true teachings, what would be of them? It would seem we are all surely cursed and doomed. I'm merely repeating what the Quran says and what Shaykh says. So don't be, Shaykh will explain later. Unless we recognize Dajjal, unless we recognize kafir on Dajjal forehead. And the saving grace of this hadith is that whether you are literate or illiterate, you can still recognize. That is the saving grace. Even after recognizing, we cannot move out of the city, as we are not trained to live in the kampung or the village. And as we recite the Quran, we saw some escape clauses perhaps. And what I recognize as the escape clause is, if we are not blind now, that means we can recognize the kafir on Dajjal forehead. In Mashar, inshallah, we will not be blinded. That is in the Quran. And it's only Allah's forgiveness, and that our tawheed is on the dot, meaning perfect, when we die, that we will have a chance in the afterworld. So perhaps Sheikh can explain our way forward, because I'm only 63 years old.
63?
63.
Okay.
I'm 63.
Okay.
I even have my children. I have 5 children. They are all big and grow up. I always talk to them. We always discuss your lectures.
Do you eat durian?
Oh, a lot. But I apologize to them. I apologize to them because I realized that I did not teach them Arabic. The Quranic Arabic, I did not teach. I'm now trying to learn through Dato' Rusli's son. I'm trying to learn the Quranic Arabic. I read a lot of translation, but I found Pikhol to be the better of most translations.
Pikhol, yes.
Pikhol. So, but that is our case now. And today is the 4th day, so it's Surah Al-Nisa.
Today is the 4th day of what?
Zulhijjah.
I didn't ask you.
Sorry, sir.
Today is the 4th day of Zulhijjah.
Yeah.
So today you recite which surah?
No, Al-Nisa.
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 On the first day you recite
Fatihah Al-Baqarah.
Al-Baqarah. On the second day you recite
Al-Imran.
Al-Imran. On the third day you recite
Today, Al-Baqarah, Al-Nisa, Al-Nisa.
So if Al-Baqarah is day number 1. Ali Imran is day number 2.
Yes.
And Nisa would be day number 3. So you said 4? Today is the 3rd day of Zilhijjah. Go ahead.
So anyway, I missed that.
A little bit of mathematics here.
It's okay. Anyway,
How do we go forward?
In Asar, it is mentioned. The Malaika will ask us.
Yeah.
We say we are living in oppression.
That's right.
Is the world not wide enough?
Fima kuntum, that's right. A good question. How do we move forward?
So conclusion.
Yeah, a good question, Hafiz. How do we move forward? The individual cannot escape, and the collective group cannot escape, the Jama'ah cannot escape without the Quran. That's why Allah has left the Quran in the world protected, divinely protected. No one can change it. It is now in the same state as it was revealed, the Quran. So we have no excuse. If we neglect the Quran, then we pay the price. The first stage of religion is called Islam, beliefs. The second stage is called Iman, which is the internalization of beliefs. So it enters the heart. What is the third stage? Al-Ihsan. Al-Ihsan is something connected with conduct, not with beliefs. Conduct. When conduct is perfected, when you are someone who, when you give your word, you keep your word. From your lips and your tongue, no lies, only the truth. You are honest, you are trustworthy. You give in charity from whatever you have. You are righteous in your conduct. You don't commit zina. No. When your conduct is successful and you beautify that conduct, you reach the stage of al-ihsan. But when the Prophet was asked, what is al-ihsan, alayhi salatu wassalam, his reply was not good conduct. His reply was not the perfection of conduct. He surprised us with his reply. He said, أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَهُ, that you should worship Allah as though you were seeing Him. But can we see Allah? When Musa alayhi salam went up the mountain, he said to Allah, Arini anzur ilayk, show me yourself, I want to see you. And Allah's reply was, Lan tarani, tabuli, not possible, you cannot ever see me. So then how can we worship Allah as though we are seeing Him when we can never see Him? But the Prophet ﷺ was asked, will we see Allah on Judgment Day? That is the believers, not George Bush, the believers. Will we see Allah on Judgment Day? What does his reply? Anybody? Yes. Anybody? What was his reply? He asked, do you have any difficulty in seeing the sun when it is midday? They said no. He asked, do you have any difficulty in seeing the moon when it is full moon? They said no. He said, that's how you'll see your Lord. on Judgment Day. So the Quran says, not possible. The Hadith says, yes, possible. Is there a conflict between the two? Huh? This one says no, this one says yes. Is there a conflict between the two? No? Really? Allah says no and the Prophet says yes. Is there no conflict? My gathering, my students are very silent. The answer is, when Allah says you cannot see me, He means you can never see me with these eyes. When the Prophet said that you will see Allah, it's not with these eyes that you will see Him. You see Him with your internal eye. This is called epistemology. What is the bahasa for epistemology? The branch of knowledge which defines knowledge. What is the bahasa? Oh, you better go back to school and learn bahasa. Okay. Epistemology is the branch of knowledge which studies what is knowledge and what are the sources of knowledge. Dajjal says the knowledge comes only from external eyes. The Quran says that's nonsense. The Quran says the knowledge comes both externally and internally. But in the same way that the external eye cannot see without light, so too the internal eye cannot see without nur. If we have no nur inside of us, we are blind. And Allah says in the Quran, "Man kana fi hazihi a'ma, فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلَّ السَّبِيلَ." Whosoever is blind here will be blind there as well, and more misguided. Not talking about this blindness, talking about this. And the Quran says about those who are internally blind, they have eyes and yet cannot see. They have ears and yet cannot hear. And as a consequence, they have hearts and yet cannot penetrate knowledge. أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ. They're just like cattle. What do you mean? I got my PhD from MIT, you calling me cattle? Yes. If you have eyes and yet cannot see, Director General of the Department of Foreign Affairs and so on and so on and so on. But you have eyes and yet cannot see. You're just like cattle. And Allah says about such people, وَلَقَدْ زَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. Huge numbers are going into the hellfire from amongst human beings and the jinn. Why? Internal blindness. The way forward is that you must have nur inside your heart. You will not get the nur only with good beliefs and correct beliefs. That is not enough. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Shall I tell you about he who has destroyed his religion? He has rubbished his religion. فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُ الْيَتِيمِ. All the good beliefs that he has, all the exact proper belief system, but He abandons his duty to the orphan. He disregards the orphan. He neglects the orphan. He's harsh to the orphan. And his religion has gone. وَلَا يَحُدُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. And he would not feed those who are hungry, they're poor. Your religion is gone, all the good beliefs you have is gone. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. And so it is not enough that you have proper beliefs and that even you have internalized those beliefs. In addition to that, you must have righteous conduct. When you have that righteous conduct and your belief system has entered into your heart, then you get nur. And when you get nur, then you have to wait until one day Allah will light the flame in your heart. When that flame enters into the heart, then you know the flame is there. There's a restlessness in the heart. I'm not going to live my life only to make money. I'm not going to live my life just to get a big mansion in Shah Alam and everybody will be envious of me. I'm going to live my life so that the truth might triumph in the world. I live and I die for you. Everything I do it for you. Then you have a flame inside of you. A flame inside of you. And so the way forward is not just correct beliefs, and mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. We have so many scholars to teach, so many asatiza to teach right beliefs. The way forward is also righteous conduct. And Nabi Muhammad was not the only one who taught that. Nabi Isa alayhi salam blasted them. Oh, the harshest language ever used was used by Nabi Isa alayhi salam. You nation of vipers. Because of betrayal of righteous conduct. You cannot have an Indonesian maid and you're paying her the salary that no Malaysian woman will work for. I don't want to talk about Singapore because it's even more shameful. It is so shameful what Singapore has done. With millions of Indonesian girls working for the salary of a dog. And they call that the model state. No Singaporean woman will ever work for the wage paid to an Indonesian maid. That is oppression. So when your conduct is righteous and you have right beliefs and you beautify your conduct, you don't put a chip on your shoulder and say, I'm a righteous man. You go to Indonesia and they'll teach you what is humility. I don't see that much in Malaysia as I see it in Indonesia, amongst the poor masses of Indonesia. As poor as they are a gentle people, they are a humble people, and they are a righteous people. And their way of life is so beautiful, mashallah. The poor of Indonesia. Malaysia is disappearing. It's going. Yeah. 350 years the Dutch rule over Indonesia. Today no Indonesian speaks Dutch. The British rule over Malaysia for how many years? Every Malaysian wants his child in an English-speaking school. Pakistan, They speak the national language Urdu to the servant, and to the children they speak in English. See, that's Pakistan. So go to Indonesia and you see, when there is that combination of correct beliefs and righteous conduct, you never corrupt. Hey, you want to sell your building, I can get the government to buy it. How much you want? 20 million? No problem. This is what we'll do, We fix the price at 22 million. You know the rest? and the other 2 billion, you bring it back to us. And you know we are 10 of us, so we had to share it among ourselves. And you expect to get Noor? You expect to get Noor? The way forward is Noor. And the way forward is that when that Noor is in the heart, يَكَادُ زَيْتُهَا يُضِيءُ وَلَوْ لَمْ تَمْسَسْهُ نَارٌ. That you have to be righteous in your conduct, and then you produce oil. And that oil is so pure, because this man is the model of righteous conduct in Islam. Model. I have a shipping agent who ships my books for me wherever I have to send them. For the last 3 years, this man has been shipping my books. I say, when are you going to send the bill? When are you going to send the bill? So I had dinner with him a few nights ago. I said, please send me the bill. How much do I owe you? He said, Sheikh, you're doing Allah's work. You're doing Allah's work. My shipping agent. The simplicity, the humility, the charity, the kindness, when all of these qualities are there in you, then one day, وَلَوْ لَمْ تَمْسَسْهُ نَارٌ. Nar means fire. And light is, chahaya is Noor. When you have the Noor, then one day you'll get the Nar, the fire. And when you have the fire inside of you, then you'll be able to see what otherwise cannot be seen. You have a restlessness inside of you. You don't care 2 peanuts. You proclaim the truth regardless of consequences. Now you are following Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. That's the way forward. Beyond that, then there's guidance in the Quran. This ummah cannot get out of the mess in which it is today without the Quran. You can hold all the PhDs you have, write all the learned essays and articles and books that you have. That will not get you out of the mess. Only the Quran. And you have to learn how to study the Quran. But you cannot study the Quran unless you are reciting the Quran. Nobody taught me that. I'm surprised why they never taught that to me. Nobody ever said that to me. I never knew it. If you are not reciting the Quran, you cannot study the Quran. You have to recite the Quran how? وَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنَ. And when we have recited the Quran, you must follow that method of recitation. And that is not just tajweed. No. That is, you must recite the Quran from cover to cover once a moon, with the moon. And Therefore you have to divide the Quran into 30 parts because the month has 30 days. Sometimes 29, sometimes 30. So you have 30 parts, 30 juz, ajza. So which is the first juz? Huh? Which is the first juz? Allah has already divided the Quran. He divided it into surahs. If you come to make another division other than the one Allah has made, I'm sorry for you. If you take a chopper and you start chop, when you reach Baqarah 141, chop, and say that is juz number 1. I'm sorry for you on Judgment Day. And then you reach Al-Baqarah 252, chop. Huh? Wait to see what Allah will do with you. You're not allowed to chop the Quran into bits and pieces. Allah is harsh in His language to these people. Alladhina what is the ayah? Ja'alu al-Qur'ana id-din. They break up the Quran into bits and pieces. So no, the first day is the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah. And the second day is the whole of Surah Al-Imran. And the third day is the whole of Surah Al-Nisa. Okay? I'm writing that book now, Methodology for Recitation of the Quran, to complement my other book, Methodology for Study of the Quran. The way forward is to first learn to recite the Quran as it ought to be recited, and then to study the Quran as it ought to be studied. The way forward also is to open your eyes and see. Where you see Dajjal is strong and powerful, you get out of that area. You move out. As soon as you open your door and you go out on the street, you see women naked and half naked and three-quarter naked and something more than that. Are you going to expose your children to that? These are the last people to follow Dajjal. That's what the Prophet said. The last people to follow Dajjal will be women. And they'll be dressed and yet naked. Dressed and yet naked. So you have to be blind not to see that these are the people of Dajjal in every shopping mall. Are you going to bring up your children amongst them? When Allah has said, protect yourselves and protect your families from the fire. Sheikh, it's only in the city I can get a job. If I go Kampung, what job will I get? I'll have to eat roti canai. Yes, it's better to eat roti canai and drink teh-tarik and protect your children than to eat kambung and bebek. Right? This is elementary thinking, elementary thinking. The Prophet spoke about time moving faster and faster. When you're living in the city and you have the perception of time moving faster and faster, you know you're on the wrong road. You've been embraced by Dajjal. Once you have this perception that time is moving faster and faster. Well, then what to do? Among the things to do is to look for a place where people don't live this fast life. That's kampung. Kampung. Life moves slowly. And these who have been trapped in the fast lane of life, they come to kampung, they say, I cannot survive here for one day. I'll go crazy. I cannot live here, Papa. I'll die if I live here. Get me out. I want to go back to the shopping mall. Huh? They're gone. They're gone. But when you have Allah in your heart, you will enjoy life moving slowly. You have time to listen to the birds. You have time to hear the wind blowing through the leaves of the tree. You have time to enjoy the flowers and so on. You have time to walk through the garden that Allah has created. And time will move deliciously slow. And from time of Fajr until this time of Zohar, my gosh, what a long day it has been for me. And after Salatul Zohar, and you take a little bite, then you have the Spanish call it the siesta. In the Quran it's called az-zahira. I don't know what it's called in Bahasa. The little afternoon nap. Oh, the Malay don't take that. And when you take a little sleep in the afternoon, which you can't do if you're working with a bank, no? And then you wake up and you have Salatul Asr, and maybe you have a small cup of coffee or so, and you have time, mashallah, until Maghrib. And the day is so nice. And then you have Salatul Maghrib and Salatul Isha, and you close the shop. After Salatul Isha is private time now. Private time. Only your wife or your children. If you have more than one wife, you have all your wives, you have your children. This is private time for them until it's time to sleep. And when you put your head to sleep, mashallah, you sleep nicely. 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, you wake up easily. They are sleeping and snoring loudly. And you are up. And you have this period of time until Salatul Fajr. Time to recite the Quran. And the time for thinking is in the early hours of the morning. Yes. This is a different way of life from the one that Dajjal has given. The way forward is to get out of the world of Dajjal. Any more questions?
Sheikh, I have said in one of your lectures that you say you cannot find a brilliant student in a sense.
A brilliant?
Student. Yeah, student. Can grasp of whatever knowledge that you want to impart to. Not in Malaysia, not in Indonesia, a little in Britain, and more in France. That's what I'm lecturing. Can you please describe us what kind of student that you really see, so that we can be that student and see what you see?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, Allah has blessed me with some students who are better than me. Yes. Alhamdulillah. They're coming now. And I'm amazed. Yes, mashallah. I have Hasbullah in Singapore, who is the best that I have. So you're lucky you have him right here in Singapore. Yesterday we had Ustaz Sheikh Imran, and I was astonished, happy. A Malay scholar, and he's in eschatology, and he's writing books on eschatology. And then Anwar told me about Ustaz Auni. Yeah, I've not met him as yet, but I'm hearing about him. Okay. When I went to Britain in 2017 for the first time in many years, I did so because my wife was pushing me. You have to go, because I have a grandson, only one grandchild, and he's in Britain. I've never saw him, and he was 3 years of age, and I reached 75. So maybe I die without ever seeing my grandson. And I can't get him out of Britain because husband and wife are separated. Not divorced, just separated. So I said, okay, let me go and see what the British will do with me. The British immigration told me sit down. And I sat down on a bench for half an hour. They asked me no questions. After half an hour, they handed me my passport. They said, you can go. I said, what? No questions? Thank you. And I've returned to Britain since then, maybe 6 or 7 times. And every time it's the same thing. Either they stamp immediately, or once or twice they ask me to wait, and 15 minutes later they come and they hand me the passport. So I say, Allah is kind. He's opening the doors. Because Britain is very, very, the number 1 state in the world for espionage and spying is Britain. Yeah. So now I'm in Britain, I see my grandson, but I then discover I have thousands of students in Britain I didn't know about. And once they hear that I'm in Britain, they come to meet me. And then I find, to my astonishment, that some of those who are coming to meet me to learn from me are graduates of the Darul Uloom. Nowhere else in the world does this happen. The Ustaz and the Maulana and the Sheikh and the Mufti keep their distance from me. They don't understand what is going on with me and this knowledge that I have, because they never studied this in Darul Uloom. So they keep their distance from me. I can talk and talk and talk and talk. No one will ever come forward and say that this Malaysian ringgit is bogus and fraudulent and haram. No one has the courage to do that. But lo and behold, in Britain, these are young, usually from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. Very few from the Arab world. And they were born in Britain. So they know Britain at the back of their hands. They're fluent in the English language, and they also have their native Urdu language. And they're graduates of Darul Uloom, and they're young men. And they come to me with hunger in their hearts. They want eschatology. And I can teach them. I said to myself, praise be to Allah, I never knew that this could ever happen. So there's a good sign that there is an awakening amongst the young people, and that tomorrow we can have a new generation of ulama who will be different from the present generation of ulama. So then I was reminded of what the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam. He said, my ummah is like the rain. What is rain in Bahasa? Ujan. Ujan. My ummah is like ujan. I do not know which shower of rain is better, the first or the last. Meaning that it is the destiny of this ummah in the end time to produce ulama, produce scholars, produce thinkers, produce sages who can be comparable to the first generation. That's what I remember when I saw this in Britain. So the situation is not hopeless. But there is advice. Number one, I had a teacher who taught me the proper methodology for study of the Quran. When I met with Dr. Mahathir in 2011, and we had a long conversation, and he didn't have a high opinion of the ulama, no. But he was full of praise for my teacher. Yes. He was full of praise for my teaching. And he appreciated the methodology that my teacher had given. It is that methodology that my teacher gave to me for study of the Quran which has made a difference. Because I am studying the Quran differently from them. Number two, my teacher insisted that in addition to studying at the Alimia Institute of Islamic Studies, I must also study at the university. So I registered to do an honors degree at the University of Karachi. You have to choose a subject for honors and 2 subjects for subsidiary. So I chose English language and I chose mathematics, and I can't remember the third, and he put a red pen and he scratched it off. And he said, no, your honors is going to be philosophy. Me? I don't know any philosophy. Honors in philosophy and psychology and sociology as your subsidiary subjects. When I entered the philosophy classroom, I realized that I was like a fish in water. I was a natural student for philosophy. He could see that. I couldn't see it. And my training in philosophy has been absolutely essential for my scholarship. And the study of psychology and sociology and so on, the modern knowledge, the modern science. But he brought to the Alimia Institute the best scholars that he could find to teach me. And he brought a scholar who taught me the philosophy of history. In which Darul Uloom today would you find a professor teaching the philosophy of history to the students of the Darul Uloom? Because I studied the philosophy of history at the hands of a competent scholar, I am able to penetrate the ilmu Akhiruzzaman. He also brought a teacher who taught me the philosophy of science. So if we are to produce the scholars for tomorrow, we have to follow that model rather than the model of Al-Azhar University and all the Darul Uloom. They can produce hundreds and thousands of graduates. It'll make no difference. None. So we need a new institution of Islamic learning to teach a different way and produce a different kind of graduate. He used to constantly impress upon me the importance of Islamic spirituality. And at the age of 22, I couldn't understand why. Why this emphasis on Islamic spirituality? Only when I was taken to Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran, then I understood that knowledge doesn't come only from the rational faculty. Knowledge is also internally received. The Darul Uloom today has forgotten that the most learned of all men is to be found at Majma'ul Bahrain. They are concentrating only this kitab and that kitab and that kitab and that kitab, and once you pass your exam, fine, finished, we've done our job. That's the Darul Uloom. You have to go to Majma'ul Bahrain, the place where the two oceans meet. The ocean of knowledge externally acquired and the ocean of knowledge internally received. And these two oceans of knowledge must be harmoniously integrated. Why is it that the only prominent Malaysian I met who understood this was your 94-year-old Prime Minister. And all the other prominent Malay politicians and businessmen and bureaucrats and so on I meet, is like pouring water on the back of a duck. I am the only one who understood. This is our predicament today. If we are to produce a new generation of scholars of Islam, we need proper methodology for study of the Quran. And we need to expand the curriculum beyond the traditional Islamic sciences to study the modern world. Any more questions? You're not giving any chance for the sisters? Okay.
Okay, these are questions. Assalamualaikum, my name is Hariza, I'm a kindergarten teacher. My students are 4, 5 and 6 years old. What will be the best way of teaching the fitnah of Dajjal? And so for these groups of young children.
A child at the age of 4 has a phenomenal mind at the age of 4. If that child is not damaged because of a breakup of the family and divorce, or father and mother fighting with each other and pots and pans flying all over the house, if the child is allowed to grow up in a happy home, a peaceful home, even if the child is only eating roti canai, never mind. If that child grows up normally, then at the age of 4, that child has a phenomenal mind already, virgin territory. And the memories that that child has at the age of 4, those memories can stay. And in the age of 80 and 90, that he still remember at the age of 4 and at the age of 3, I remember these things. Today, how many of you have memories of things that happened when you were 3 years of age? Put your hands up, anybody? 3 years of age and 4 years of age. Put your hands up. You can't remember, eh? You see? You can't remember. You have no memory. It's gone. That's the beauty of bringing up a child the proper way. The proper way. And when the child reaches the age of 4, the British say 5, we say 4. You have to introduce the child now to formal education. But what about before that? Well, I had to go to work, so I had to put the child in a daycare center. And when they don't like the name daycare center, they give it a sophisticated name. They call it preschool. Huh? But it's actually dumping the child somewhere so I can go to work. You dump the child so you can go to work. You're damaging that child. Up to the age of 4, the child needs mommy full time. Full time. The child needs to play, jump, dance, sing, be like the flowers in the field. That is essential for growing up. A happy childhood. And mommy has to be there. When mommy is busy, then you have the neighborhood. If you live like a family, next door neighbor would help temporarily. But that's only on occasions when mommy is not there. Otherwise, mommy is there full time. That is incompatible with the feminist revolution, where a woman has the equal right to a career as a man. And as a consequence, you either have to postpone children, and that is shirk, because now you're doing the right thing instead of Allah. Shall I repeat it? May I? The Quran says Allah does the right thing. You don't believe me? The Quran says that Allah does the right thing. How many children you will have and when you will have them. And you say to Allah, listen, you step aside. We're going to decide. We'll decide when it's convenient to have a child. And we will decide how many children is convenient for us, so you kindly step aside. Good. Go ahead with that and see what's going to happen to you. You live with darkness inside of you, no light. So Allah is the one who chooses. You can't say, I'm going to postpone children because I have a career, and I'm going to limit the size of my family because I have a career. Okay? And when I go to work, the children have to go to the daycare center, or go to the preschool, or go to the babysitter, or go to the next door neighbor, or to the granny, go anywhere, go anywhere, go anywhere, I gotta go to work. And you expect that child to grow up normally? Your duty to your children is to be there for them full time. Your mother was there for you full time. You must be there for them full time. And then the child can grow normally. Between the ages of 4, when formal education begins. Before 4, there is no formal education. Let the child play. But from 4, there is formal education. Formal education does not begin with a trousers and a shirt and a tie going to an English language school and learning the English language. Formal education begins with the Quran. That's where you start. The child must learn to recite the Quran. That's number 1. By the age of 7, the child should be able to recite any passage of the Quran fluently. By the age of 10, if that child is not reciting the Quran cover to cover once a month, you failed. You failed your child. Once the child is indoctrinated, the child is made, it's a habit now, that I recite the whole Quran. Every morning I recite the Quran before going to school. And I must complete the Quran once a month. Then the child will do that for the rest of his life, until he dies. That is the beginning of education in Islam. The rest comes after that.
Next question. How do we understand several verses in the Quran? For example, Al-Baqarah 62 mentioning the believers, Jews and Christians and Sabi'in, who believe in Allah, last day and do righteous conducts shall have their rewards from their Lord. Are they all Muslims? Are they all considered as Muslims? Who are the Sabi'in? What is the system of the meaning of this ayah?
Truth, when it comes to the world as a way of life, is called deen, religion. And there's only one deen with Allah. And in the Quran he calls it Islam. If you believe that Islam came to the world for the first time with Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and with the Quran, I suggest you buy a one-way ticket to the moon. No. Truth came to the world for the last time with Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, with the Quran. We do not have a monopoly on truth. No. The Chinese have a great civilization. They have great spiritual leaders amongst them Confucius. And there was a man named Gautama Buddha. So who are these men? Did they have anything connected with truth? Huh? Yes, the Quran makes mention of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And it makes mention of the Anbiya who came from his seed. But Allah restricted it to this line to force you to think. Yes. He says, to every people I sent a guide. To every people I sent a guide. So did he not send a guide amongst the Chinese? Or are the Chinese devoid of all truth? Did he not send a guide amongst the Hindus? Or are the Hindus all destined for the fire? How do we check it out? The pages of history. Answer: if I find someone who, when he gives his word, he keeps his word, who is honest, particularly in business transaction, he's honest, he's truthful, he is righteous in conduct, he doesn't oppress anyone, but he's Chinese, then I'm forced to think, where did that man get this righteous conduct from? How did he learn that when you give your word, you must keep your word? Huh? Where did he learn honesty from? How do I find him so righteous in his business dealings with me? I can trust this man, but he's Chinese. He's not Christian, he's not Muslim, he's not Jew. He didn't come from Ibrahim. So where did it come from? Answer: when you find righteous conduct in a people, whoever they are, Confucian, Hindu, Taoist, whatever they are, when you find righteous conduct in someone, you know there must be a remnant of truth which has produced this righteous conduct. Huh? And I belong to a community who have the Quran. I can't trust him. He will cheat me if I'm not careful. He tells lies. You see, he's a Muslim. And here is this Chinese man, I can trust him. This one has the truth and he betrayed it. And he says, you know, fix the price of 22 million. And 20 million will go to the company. And 2 million give it back to us. Huh? That's how business is done in Malaysia? Huh? Huh? This man has the truth and he betrayed it. And that man is righteous in conduct. So there must be a remnant of truth with him. So you go to his scripture. You go, for example, to the Buddhist scriptures. And when you go to the Buddhist scriptures, you use the Quran to judge. And then you find Gautama Buddha talking. And my gosh, Gautama Buddha talks as though the Quran is talking. Buddha is talking as though it is the Quran which is talking. When he talks about righteous conduct, when he talks about right livelihood, when he talks about right speech, when he talks about right conduct, Huh? So now you know that there was a remnant, there was truth here, and there was some corruption of the truth, which led to deviation in beliefs. But the truth was not destroyed, which is why it is still possible for someone who follows Gautama Buddha to become a righteous person. In the same way you have to go to all other people. Go to the Hindu world. You don't write off the whole Hindu world as idol worshippers. Finish. One sentence is enough for the whole Hindu world. Because you find this Hindu and he displays more righteous conduct than your Muslim neighbor. Yeah? So then you go to the Vedas. And when you go inside the Vedas, you're able to locate echoes of the Quran in the Vedas. Then you realize that truth came to the Hindus. When you do that, now comes the stage of wisdom. This is different from the fellow jumping up and saying, take the Shahada, take the Shahada, take the Shahada. Forget that fellow. You go to the Hindu scriptures, you locate the truth which is still there with them, and you take the Hindu to the truth which is with him and tell him, the truth that you have and the truth that I have is the same truth. That man will now respect you because you are showing respect for truth in his religion. It is then possible one day for you to be able to guide him and show him, well, you have the truth, but this business about money lending on interest, I have to tell you, your religion has been corrupted here. When the religion says a Jew may not lend money on interest to another Jew, but he could lend on interest to all the rest of us. You see? And then he may accept, because you are showing respect for the truth which is with him. This is my explanation of that ayah of the Quran. Next question.
Can you tell us about the hadith, birds cannot fly in the end time?
The hadith is that when the malhama takes place, it will be such a cataclysmic event, horrendous event, that birds flying in the sky will fall down. Why will the bird fall down? Because the birds can no longer navigate. Why will the bird no longer be able to navigate? The same reason why the bees can no longer navigate today. And so honey production is falling. It is the contamination of the atmosphere, radiation coming out from nuclear explosions, radiation coming from electromagnetic waves from the 5G and whatever it's called, from the wireless computers and the cell phone towers and your smartphone and so on. This is Dabbatul Ard. But I suggest you read my book on the Jasad for that subject of Dabbatul Ard. Next question.
Curious about the hadith on Akhiruzzaman. For example, with the Sahih Bukhari, how many hundred hadiths are there on Akhiruzzaman?
There are many, many, many ahadith on Akhiruzzaman. But if you look at my scholarship, I only quote a few. Why? I will not quote a hadith until I have sifted it to determine whether it is in harmony with the Quran or in conflict with the Quran. What is its status? When I'm comfortable that the hadith is in harmony with the Quran, I use it. When it is plain as daylight to me that the hadith is in conflict with the Quran, even if it's in Bukhari, I declare that it is fabricated. So Nabi Muhammad ﷺ could not have married a child. No. So while there are many, many ahadith, I have not as yet studied them all this way. It's not easy to make a study of a hadith to determine or not whether it is in harmony with the Quran or conflict with the Quran. You need to be very careful. So I move slowly, one at a time. Next one. No more?
Is there any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
When the Ashabul Kahfi was in a later operation, they made a dua to request for Rabbana atina min ladunka rahmah wa hayyi lana min amrina rashada. So the word request rashada. Is that correct that if I interpret rashada as sense, and if it's correct, what kind of sense that we're talking about, and if any other way to explain about that dua, that we can benefit from the dua in our own time.
وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. We're going to have to postpone that question until I study again the subject. Yeah. Next question.
Yes.
Send me an email. Send me an email to remind me. Go ahead.
Louder, please. Can you come?
What is your view on Samiri?
On Samiri.
Is it interrelated with Dajjal?
Is the Samiri Dajjal? I have 550,000 emails on the subject. Samiri Dajjal, Sheikh. Samiri Dajjal. Wake up, Samiri Dajjal. Okay. When Tamim Dari met with Dajjal on the island, he said to she said to Tamim, Ana al-Masih, I am the Messiah. For someone to be recognized as possibly Dajjal, he has to make a claim to be the Messiah. Okay? Are you following me? If he's never made a claim to be the Messiah, we don't have any legs on which to stand. We're just engaging in something called guesswork. And guesswork is different from scholarship. Yeah. If you can provide the evidence that Samiri ever claimed to be the Messiah, then we can examine the possibility that the Samiri was Dajjal. The only reference to Samiri we can find is in the Quran. And there is no such reference in the Quran from Samiri claiming to be the Messiah. Next question? Yeah.
Regarding Sukarno, Sheikh.
Sukarno.
How did he get out from the IMF or the Bretton Woods or the United Nations?
In 55? What? 65? No. When Indonesia became independent in what year? 48. And Malaysia?
56.
All right. It was when Malaysia became independent. It was when Malaysia was created as an independent state that Sukarno take action. So Malaysia was what, 55? 57. So then if you go back home now, when you check out, Sukarno pulled Indonesia out of the UN and the IMF around 1956-57, okay? At that time, it was possible to get out of the IMF. And he did it. But when the IMF saw what Sukarno did, the IMF said, we got to buy some more rope. And they bought a lot of rope to tie you down, so that no one could ever do what Sukarno did. So when Hugo Chavez attempted to take Venezuela out of the IMF, it was not possible. There was too much rope tying him down. Okay? Anyone who wants to get out of the IMF today will have to make an enormously expensive sacrifice. Your economy will collapse, people will be starving, and the people will immediately turn against you. And your government will be booted out. Nobody wants to go down that road today. Yeah. Next question?
Can I just add some
Yeah.
information that I know on Sukarno? Because she mentioned whether he went out of the IMF, he knew what he did was actually as per Allah's command. One of the interesting about the Allah Yarham Sukarno is he listens to the ulama.
Yes, correct.
And there was even a story, a real story that happened. It was an official function, and one of the ulama that guided him was known as, I think now already deceased, Pak Hassan Bandung, right? And it was the national anthem playing, and they're raising the flag. And Pak Hassan stood, it's a shirk, he said. So Pak Hassan sat down. Never want to raise up. And Bung Karno, no, this is his teacher. He respects his teacher.
Yeah.
He was confused, standing up, sitting down, standing up, standing. That is Sukarno. So finally he sat down, but everybody stood up.
Okay.
So
okay, I'm glad you told me this story. Okay. Okay. Ustad Rashid. Who is he?
Asrar Rashid. He also here on IPN.
Who is he?
The one that he want to meet you in the Trinidad, the Ustaz from the USA. He's trying to...
An Ustad from Britain
Yes, Britain.
has been directing attacks against me,
Yeah, he's the one.
and I've chosen to ignore him. And I continue to ignore him. You want me to open the door? Good. Next question.
Okay, I think this is the last question. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 68, it is mentioned that, O people of the scripture, you are standing on nothing until you uphold the law of the Torah, the gospel, Injil, and what has been revealed to you from your Lord. Do the Islamic scholars nowadays are assumed on nothing as well until they uphold the law of Torah and Injil as well?
We have been given the Sharia, different from their Sharia. And Allah has said in the Quran, also in Surah Al-Ma'idah, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. To each of you we have given a different Sharia. So he gave me this Sharia, why should I follow that Sharia? لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. If Allah had so willed, He could have made all of you into one ummah following one Sharia Salafi style. But He has not done that. وَلَكِنْ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ فِي مَا آتَاكُمْ. He has made you a multiplicity of ummahs with different Sharia to test you, to see which of you will be faithful to your Sharia while studying others, but you follow yours. إِلَى اللَّهِ مَرْجِعُكُمْ جَمِيعًا. All of you are going to come back to me. فَيُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ فِيهِ تَخْتَلِفُونَ, and I will then explain to you the differences that exist between you. This ayah of the Quran is sufficient to answer you. Yeah, that's enough for today.